So in this video what we're going to be doing is we're going to be soldering on the plugs, we're going to be testing the voltage and doing a few sort of finalizing things ready to be ready for the software. I'm also going to be installing it into the light and connecting the temperature probe into the right place and showing you all that sort of stuff. Okay, so this is the board, the original board that came out of the light, and as you can see I've already removed one of the plugs because they come with two. I've already removed one for the prototype and I'm going to remove this one here to put on the new board which we soldered in the previous video. Okay, so moving in close, what we've got which is holding this plug on is we've got a little solder pad here, one here, and then we've got all these pins at the back here. If I bring in an original board and place them next to each other, you will see that we've got the same sort of pads here. So we've got some grounding pads here which is going to hold just here on this pin here, and we've got the pins at the back and this port and this grounding pad over here. Now what I have done as well is I've placed just behind the pads here, these are points where you could solder wires to directly, or you could, if you wanted to, you could connect pin headers to them and then solder like a plug yourself if you wanted to. If you wanted to do something like that, you can. So this is something that's quite flexible. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the plug and be soldering it onto the board, which enables me just to be able to connect it and disconnect it pretty easily. It's going to be basically a drop-in replacement then. So to remove this is not the easiest of jobs, but it can be done. So that is one of the reasons I've made it sort of like an option. If you wanted to, you could literally solder the wires directly to the board, but I'm going to do this in time lapse and you will see how I do it, and then we will solder it onto the other board eventually. So you can see I removed the plug, and you can also see that I damaged it. I was too aggressive. What I did was I was using my fingernail to just to lift it up a little bit and just apply a little bit of pressure, and that was too much. So to remove it, what I would do is I would have these pads heated up one by one, and at the same time apply a little bit of pressure, which is what caused me to break the pin itself, and I would keep doing that, alternating between them two, and also relieving the pressure on the pins at the back here. You can see in the time lapse that I did that. And what I would do is I'd keep doing that until the port was at an angle like that. And then I would use the heat to get the solder that was between them two pads nice and liquid, and then I would use my solder sucker just to suck out all the solder. Once I'd done that, once there was no more solder and there's no more contact between them two pads at the front, I could use it and just run my soldering iron along the back there and just remove it. Like I said before, this is not the easiest of tasks, but it can be done, and it can be done without breaking it, because the one that's on the prototype didn't get broken as I was removing it. Okay, so once you've removed the plug, and in my case repaired it as well, you don't have to repair it, but I, like any good reefer, have super glue lying around for gluing my frags and whatnot, so I just decided to just stick that bit of glue, stick it on with a bit of glue, and that'd be done. Another thing to note as well is these pads on the back here are still they've still got a bit of solder on, so what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to sort of flatten them out with a soldering iron, and then that just sits on there like that, and the pads line up at the back, and then on each side here you have two little solder areas, which is just to secure the plug to make it more solid. And that has to be done twice in my case, because this board that I'm doing here is for the big light, and I'm going to keep the prototype running as it is for now. Okay, so that is now the first plug on. The next job is going to be to move over to the other light and remove the original board out of the light. Okay, so here at the light, as you can see, there are two sort of little pegs here which are used to secure the lid on, and we are not going to be able to use them anymore. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to loosen them off here, and if you just loosen them with a pair of pliers like this, you can then twist them off by hand. And you can now already see the board is loose in there. I'm just going to move some of these lenses out of the way so that they're not going to be annoying me. And then we've got the temperature sensor here, which can be disconnected. And then we should be able to just lift this up. And you can just remove these here. They do have a little bit of this red sort of glue on them, so they're a bit fiddly to get out. But you just keep moving them about and they will eventually release themselves. And the only thing we need from this board are these two plugs here. And I've already showed you how to remove them plugs. So for me, it's now just a case of doing the same thing over and soldering it back onto the board. So I'm going to skip forward a little bit, and the next clip you see, these plugs will be on the original board. Okay, so now as you can see, I've got both of the plugs on here and I'm pretty much ready to start to think about installing this. And before I do that, one thing I want to do is I'm going to take a little flathead screwdriver here, and I'm just going to use this, just turn this screw here, and I'm going to turn it in all the way clockwise until you feel the resistance. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it like that until we decide to connect it all up. And to connect it up, it's really simple. You've got these two plugs here, 1, 2, and they correspond to 1, 2 on this. If you're doing just one light, then you would only need one of these plugs. It really doesn't matter which ones you use because you can select which ones you want in the software itself. So I've got them plugs connected now, they're all nice. And there's one more thing we need to worry about, and that is that this board is got all these open contacts and this is a metallic surface. So what I'm going to use this little bit of plastic, and I'm just going to protect it to sort of keep a bit of distance between the boards while we do the power up and while we set the voltage. And to power it up, I'm going to be using the original power brick that came with the light itself. I'm going to do that now, and you will notice that when I plug in the power, nothing will happen. Nothing will light up, nothing will happen at all, and that is exactly what you want. So now the light has power, what we're going to do is we're going to use one of these, a multimeter, and I'm going to set it to voltage DC, which is this setting here. Oh, that's one too far. That setting there, and you're going to have to test on these 2 points here. You're going to want to test on the far pad on this side and on the lower pad on this side, and you'll get a reading. And because we lowered that screw in all the way, the reading will be really low. Yeah, so what you're going to want to do is, if I open that screw up all the way, if I go all the way in the opposite direction and do another measurement, you'll see the voltage has changed. We're now at 5.8 volts. What we're aiming for is 5 volts. So we're going to change that screw until we get to 5 volts. And now I've done that, there's 2 more things I'm going to do. I'm going to secure this little screw with some hot glue, and I'm going to create a contact there. So I'm going to bridge these 2 pads here where it says 5 volt test with some solder. So when you're soldering this, be sure to disconnect the power, and what you're looking for is a dob of solder just like that, just to connect them 2 pads together. That basically finishes the connection through the rest of the circuit. So that is it from a hardware standpoint. It is pretty much ready to be programmed now. There's one thing left to do, and that's obviously put in the SD card, which we prepared in the other video. And another thing as well, which I'm going to do, is because this is a metallic case and these are all exposed and whatnot, I'm going to cover it in some heat shrink wrapping. This is 40mm wide and as long as the board is, and I'm just going to put that over it and then use a heat gun to shrink it down. So to close up the board, what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to finish off placing the temperature sensor, and to do that I'm going to remove the old one. And to connect the temperature sensor, I'm going to use some of this tape here, which is just a sticky back aluminium foil tape. I think it's used for air conditioning units and whatnot. But I'm going to use that to tape it down to the board, and I'm going to just tape it down over here somewhere, because that's unfortunately all the length I gave myself in the wire. But it should be fine. It doesn't matter whether it's on this side or this side. Just needs to get an average temperature reading. Okay, so really now the only thing left to do is to put all the lenses back in their spot, push this little board back down into its position and close it up, and then we're ready for the next video where I'm going to be showing you how to load in all the settings that you need to make the light work properly. Okay, so while I'm doing this last little bit here, while I'm finishing up, screwing in all these screws, the next video I'm going to be more on the computer, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you how to connect it up to your computer, how to connect the Wi-Fi, how to load in all the settings that I used on the prototype, and all that sort of stuff. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.